Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, and in today's class, we're going to be learning about how to use Ollama and Python in order to run large language models locally on our own systems. So I'm going to say something a bit controversial here. I'm not sure if large language models are actually AI. Frankly, I'm not even sure what the hell AI is at this point in time, but what I can tell you is that large language models are incredibly valuable for creating decision-making systems. So basically, if you're getting user input and then trying to trigger an event based off of that user input, large language models can be incredibly valuable. And for parsing the information, for basically what's called natural language processing, where a user interacts with your system and they talk however it is that they normally talk, and basically getting your system to understand, again, what the hell it's asking for. Now, the thing is, there's a lot of APIs out there. There's OpenAI. I've done a lot of classes on OpenAI at this point. There are Claude from Anthropic. That's an API. But with the APIs, what happens is you install the module or whatever onto your computer, and then your computer has to have an internet connection to communicate with their servers, and basically the query, the request goes up, and then you get a response from their servers. Now, there's any number of reasons why you may not want to use an API from somebody else's service. Maybe there are security issues that you're concerned about, or simply maybe you don't have a stable internet connection, and so being required to always make an API call could be a big problem. So the cool thing is that many companies have actually put out open source, either open source or openish. Warning, Will Robinson, be careful with the licensing when you start using this. But anyways, it's either open source or open-ish, right? They've put out their models so that you can actually run these systems locally. They may not be quite as good as OpenAI or Claude, but they're actually pretty darn good. The problem that you run into, though, is like for me, I decided to go to Meta and start trying to run Llama 2 on my MacBook Pro. So I have an M2 an M2 Max or whatever MacBook Pro that I bought last year. I use Meta's 5 steps for installing Llama 2 onto it, and I did install it onto it, and then I ran a query. And it took like 4 minutes to run. Basically, I installed Llama 2 per the instructions from Facebook onto a 2019 MacBook Pro, and I crap you not, each request took 10 minutes to run. I then put it on my M2 MacBook Pro. We got it down to 4 minutes, but I was a bit frustrated because obviously, I mean, that works. I mean, it does work. It's just, doesn't work very well. So anyways, the cool thing is I had heard about Ollama, and basically Ollama is a framework for you to be able to install onto your computer. So whether it's Mac, whether it's Linux, or whether it's Windows, you install Ollama on your computer, and then you can add large language models to Ollama, and they actually run really, really, really well. And the cool part is you can actually, there's a Python module, so you can actually use Python to interact with Ollama. So a lot of the functions and features that you were getting out of something like OpenAI, you can actually now run that all locally. And so that's why I'm going to be showing you how to use Ollama today. Shockingly easy to use, and very good performance on whatever system that you're using, and gives you a lot of ability to choose many different models that you might want to test for whatever project it is that you're trying to create. So before we get into class today, let me give you a demonstration of how Ollama works. So basically, we got our nice terminal here, the command line. I simply type in the command Ollama, then I do run, and then I tell it what model that I want it to use. So I'm going to say Llama 2, right? So I'm going to hit that. It is then going to load Llama 2, and then I'm actually going to get a Llama shell, right? You've seen SQL shells and you've seen Linux shells. Well, now you have a Llama, an AI shell. And here you can plug in messages. So I can say something like hello, and it gives me a nice little response there. I can say, are birds real? And it gives me a very long response there. We're not going to read all of this. By default, I will say Llama 2 is very verbose. It just does not shut the hell up. But as you can see, basically it literally performs that quickly, even as something random as, are birds real? If we go over and we take a look at the Python script, right? So I have a user Python script here. Basically, this is the query that's going to go to Llama 2. And then down here, I have a while true loop. So basically, when the script runs, it'll ask me a question. What do I care about? It'll give me a response, and then it'll just keep looping, so I can keep asking it questions without having to rerun the script again. So I can click on the run button. Again, it says, how can I help you? I can say hello here. It says, hi there. How are you? Cool. I can say, are birds real? Of course, birds are living flying creatures. And it gives you how can I help you again. The thing here is basically what I'm doing is I'm modifying the query up here to say answer in 25 or fewer words, since I don't want that whole verbose response. And so that's a kind of cool thing that you can do with Python is you can add those basically prompt injections is what they're called. So that's how you run Llama from the shell and from the Python script. And with that, we'll dive into this class and show you how to use Ollama because it is incredibly, incredibly easy to use. So the first thing that we need to do is take a look at the Ollama website. So it's hard to see for you folks out there, but literally it's OLLAMA.com. You just go there and you should get a nice little llama picture taking a look at you. When you're going to download this and install it onto your computer, you just click on the download button. They have the blog, the GitHub, and then the models, right? So if you're going to install this, I already have it installed on my system. Basically, all you do is you go down, you click on the download, it'll give you a download for Mac OS. If you go to Linux, basically it'll give you a curl command to install onto your system. And if you go to Windows, it's currently in preview version. Depending on when you watch this, it'll probably be out of preview version. But Ollama is a pretty simple piece of software, so it should be pretty easy to use with whichever system that you're going to be using it with. Then we can go up here to models. So models is where the real magic happens, right? So Ollama is just a framework that allows you to run these models. And this is where you can come in and you can take a look at the metric crap ton of models that are now currently available. Again, one of the things that I'll worry about, remember, we are technology professionals. As technology professionals and decision makers, it is as important to understand things as licensing as the technical aspects of whatever it is that we're doing. So be very careful about that. Again, what you do in a lab environment, it's probably fine. You know what you do in your own home, nobody's gonna know. But if you are testing and you are building with the idea that you're going to put this into a production environment, for the love of crikey, make sure you understand the licenses for everything that you're using to verify that you're not violating that. It may not seem like a big deal now, but do remember, as far as regulations are concerned and auditing is concerned for corporations, there will be new rules that come down the pike. And so if you build things now that are within compliance, then 2 years from now, when your company is being audited, you get to go have a cup of coffee and read a book because you're not too worried about it, right? You know, you have all the paperwork. Yep, these models are open source or whatever. This is, right, there's all the documentation. You don't have to be worried about it. So do be careful with that. But if you come here, you will see there are just a crap ton of different models. You have the Mistral model, DeepSeek, you have Coder models. So DeepSeek Coder is capable of coding model trained on 2 trillion code and natural language tokens. Orca, Dolphin Mistral, Tiny Dolphin, experimental 1.1 billion parameters. So one of the things to be thinking about is if you're thinking about using one of these different models is essentially the smaller model the less resources are required, right? So like a 1 billion parameter model should run on something like a Raspberry Pi. Llama 2 that has a 70 billion parameter model, basically you need at least 64 gigs of RAM to run on that. So that's one of the things to be thinking about with these models too, is if the model is running really, really, really slow on your computer, simply by swapping the model out, you might find a model that runs better for you. Again, with these models, the more parameters there are, theoretically, the better the model will run. But again, depending on your particular system, if you just need your computer to say hello or to do some very basic automation tasks, a 1.1 billion parameter model might be fine for you. And then again, like a lot of these are trained for things like coding and a whole bunch of different things. So that's what you'll have to figure out what you care about. But this, you're not going to download from here. You're actually going to pull from Ollama itself. So now that you know how to install Ollama and you know where to go and just take a look at the different models, basically we're going to go back to the command prompt now. And the first thing that you may want to do is pull a model down. Now it is important to understand is when you first run a model, it will automatically pull that model for you. But just for peace of mind purposes, you may want to pull the model down. So basically all you're going to be doing is you're going to be downloading that model onto your computer. Again, this is something to think about is, take a look at the sizes of these different models, right? The Llama2 70 billion parameter one, something like 36 gigs. So one of the things you might want to take a look at is literally how physically big these things are. And even if you have the hard drive space, the storage space, it might take a long time for you to download. But if you want to pull a model, all right, so we were just at the command line. So we are just at the command line here. So we call Ollama. So Ollama has already been installed. You've run through the process, and then you simply do pull. So the pull command is going to download whatever model you tell it to download. And I don't have this installed on my system yet, so we're going to download Pi. So Pi is a Microsoft model that they allow you to download. It's a small one, so it shouldn't take too long. Then I will hit enter. Basically, we can see it's pulling the manifest. We're going through this whole process where it's going to be downloading. And again, so this is 1.6 gigs. So this is a small model. I think it's less than 3 billion parameters, so it won't take very long. And so as you can see, we're trucking along. We get to the 100% mark. Keeps going through. Again, we go through these nice little, screens that we get to in the tech world. There we go. So verifying. So it's verifying it, writing the manifest, removing unused layers, and now we are back to the command prompt. So that's all you have to do to pull one of these models down. And you may want to do this again with one of those large models. You may want to pull the model down and go have some lunch. Past that then, I can simply type in clear. And then what happens if we want to run a model? So we're going to do Ollama. We're going to do run, and then I'm simply going to do Llama2. So Llama2 is the model that we're going to be running, yada, yada. Then we're going to hit enter. And again, depending on how large the model is, this may be fast or slow, and how many resources you have. So again, I have a less than 1 year old M2 Max or whatever MacBook Pro. So this runs pretty good with 32 gigs of RAM. Your system might be slower. So from this, we simply have this nice little shell, right? You will see that there's a / question mark. You can take a look at this. And if you do / question mark, it will give you some options of what to do. You can set session variables. You can show the model information. You can do a lot of different things. One of the big things is, again, always know how to get out of a shell. /by is what will get you out of the shell if you need it. Then past there, I can simply type something like hello down here. And, hello, it's nice to meet you. Is there something I can do? I can say, are birds real? And then it goes through, and like I say, it gives me all this information about how birds are real. I can say, what is a door? I don't know. What's a door baker? Give it something really random, see what the answer will be. I believe, there we go. It will give you an answer for whatever you say. I believe you meant what is a door baker? A door baker is a humorous term that does not have a specific meaning or definition. So there you go. It will actually tell you what a door baker is, if you care what a door baker is. So you can sit here and you can keep plugging things in. And the cool part with these different models, like if you want to use a different model, you simply leave. You do by. Once you've left, you can do Ollama. So run Pi. So right, that was the one we just put in. And then we have Pi, and we can say, I don't know, are Birds real with pi. And yes, birds are very real. And you see you get a different response back. This is going to be an important thing when you're using AI, quote unquote AI, when you're using large language models. Let's just keep it at that. One of the important things to be thinking about when you use large language models is how does the large language model actually respond? Does it respond? Does it quote unquote talk in a way that you appreciate, or does it talk in a way that your customers will appreciate? What is technically impressive can practically be a piece of garbage, right? And so one of the cool parts about this is you can go through and you can use all of these different models, just kind of like that for that taste and feel. Like, what do your people like, the Coke of LLMs or the Pepsi of LLMs? I mean, hell, maybe your clients like the RC Cola of LLMs, right? And so the cool thing here is you can use all of these different models. It's so easy to use these different models to just get that feel for how they operate, so you can decide which one is most appropriate for your particular environment. Okay, so using Ollama at the shell level is a cool party trick, but that's not really a full-fledged product, right? You can sit there, you can test a whole bunch of different models, see what gives the best types of responses, but that's not something you're going to give to the end user. That's probably not something that you really want to use a lot at the end of the day. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use Python, and with Python, you're able to interact with Ollama, and then you're able to add on all the additional functionality that you want. So if you want to create a web app, you can use Bottle or Django or whatever else. Basically have a little text input form. That text input form can then, send the query to the function that you create for interacting with Ollama. The value can come back and you can dump it into a database or whatever else. Python is what's going to make Ollama really, really cool. With everything in Python, you're going to need to install the package. You're going to need to call the module. So it's Ollama here. If we go over to PyPy, so our standard PyPy, pip install Ollama, Ollama. That will install it onto your system. And if you take a look here, they'll give you some of the basic usage and different ways to play with Ollama. So that's here. One of the big things to realize, though, is I don't know if you can really see it here, is you actually need to be running Ollama. So this might cause you a little bit of problem. So Ollama, when you start running Ollama on your system, so when we started this to have Ollama run, this is now running as a service on your system. So basically what Python is going to do is it's going to start communicating with a service that's already running. So if you have not started Llama yet, or Ollama yet, with whatever model you want to use, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to have to do that, right? So if we do buy, what we can do here, let me clear the screen, so we can do Ollama and then run Llama2. So this is going to start Ollama with a Llama2 model. And now we can go over to Python and we can start interacting with Ollama because it's running. Again, if you're on Mac, you're going to see a little icon up there to show Ollama is running. So if you run the Python script and it fails for like weird reasons, most likely Ollama is not currently running. If we go over, we can take a look at the script, and it's pretty simple. Again, we're going to import the Ollama model. So response, this looks a lot like when you're interacting with OpenAI. So response is going to equal Ollama.chat. You're going to plug in the model. So Llama2, pi, for the different llamas. So it's colon. So Llama2 colon 7b, Llama2 colon 13b, Llama2 colon 70b. If you've got a lot of resources, I can run 70B on my MacBook Pro, again, with 32 gigs of RAM. Again, it takes about 2 minutes for it to actually process a response. So depending on what you're doing, that's one thing too, is you'll hear about that with how many resources you need in order to run these different models. And the important thing to understand is that's kind of like under load, like if you're going to put this into production. If you're just doing testing and it doesn't really matter if it takes a minute to get a response back, you can use some of these very large models. Again, it will just be very, very slow. So if you're just doing very basic testing, you can run your query, go get a cup of coffee, come back, see the results, and that might be all you need in order to prove some kind of point to yourself. But anyways, so the model here, you just tell it what model you want. So you have messages equals, and then so role is user, and then content. This is going to be what your query is. Are birds real? because that's just the query I keep asking. Then we're going to come down here. So response, this is going to bring back a value for response. Then we're going to print out response, message, content. And you'll notice if you've been using OpenAI, that looks a lot like how OpenAI does it. And so if we run this, so I'm simply going to go up here and going to run it. It'll take a second. Dun, 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 and then we get everything here. So again, it is pretty verbose. Of course, birds are real. Birds are living creatures that belong to the class Avis and are characterized by their feathers, wings, and beaks. Blase, 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 blase. So basically, if all you want to do is you just want to play with this, this is the basic script for getting Ollama to run in Python. Past that, I then created another script that gives us a little bit more utility. Basically, we're going to have an input function. So the input function is where you get to tippy-tap type out your query into, just on the command line, and then it's going to do a while true loop. So basically, it's going to give us a response, and then when we're done, we can do another response, and another response, and another response. This makes it a lot easier, again, to figure out how the system works. The other thing is I've done a prompt injection to say, keep it below 25 words. Again, that's the kind of thing you are going to have to be thinking about when you're using these AI systems, is how to how to bias your AI into the direction that you care about. So with this, we're going to import Ollama, as we did before. Then we're going to import OS. So we're going to be interacting with the operating system a little bit. So we need that OS module. Then we're going to come down here. So we're going to have os.system clear. So what this does is it's going to clear out the command line. Again, to make this a little cleaner and easier to use, basically when you run this script, it's just going to delete out everything that's on that command line page to give you a nice clean interface. So while true, query equals input, how can I help you? So basically it's going to say, how can I help you? You're going to type something in. When you hit enter, again, we're going to use that clear again. So we're going to clear out the screen. Answer is going to equal ask. So the ask function query. And then we're simply going to print out what the question was, so question, and what the query, so what the question was, and then we're going to print out answer. So the answer is going to come from when we submit the query to the ask function. So we're going to print out what the query was and what the answer is. If we come up here and we take a look at the function itself, very, very simple function. Again, this is really cool. So again, define ask, so query comes in. So query is now going to equal, right? So this is where we're going to do a prompt injection. So the original query, so the query value that comes in, so we're using an F string, hyphen, answer in 25 or fewer words to keep this damn thing kind of short. All right, response equals a Llama chat model. I have here Llama2 7B. So this is how you can with something like Llama2, there's 7B, there's 13B, there's 70B. So I can say I want it to be 7B. Messages, role user, content. So the query. So basically we're submitting the value for the query variable here. And then the response is going to equal, again, response equals response message content. So the response is going to come back. Then I'm going to grab the content from response. I'm going to just assign that to response. And then I'm going to return response. So basically I'm going to be returning what the results are from Llama2. And that's what's going to get printed out on the screen. So if I hit run here, you can see like it first loaded up and then we have OS system clear. So it clears the screen. So how can I help you? And I can simply type in, are birds real? So question, are birds real? Of course, birds are living, breathing creatures with feathers, blah, blah, blah. And it keeps it nice and reasonably short and then gives us that prompt again. From here, I can say, are birds, I don't know, alive? I don't know what to ask it. Of course, birds are living creatures. They breathe, eat, and have a circulatory system. Can birds vote? Birds cannot vote as they are not human beings. See, that's the cool thing about that while true loop is you can just sit here and you can just continuously play with it. And especially this can be very useful, again, like in a real project when you really are trying to figure out real responses. You can just sit here and keep hammering it with all these different requests, trying to figure out whether it'll give you a bad response or if all the responses look good in a very, very simple system like this before you implement this into a much larger application or package that you might be wanting to deploy. So anyways, that's really all there is to how to use Python with Ollama. The big thing is make sure Ollama is already running on your system. If you've quit Ollama in the past or whatever else, all this will fail because basically Ollama is running as a service and Python is interacting with that service in order to get these results. So there you go. You have now learned how to install Llama, how to pull down whatever model it is that you want to use. You've learned how to interact with Ollama at that shell level, and you've learned how to use Python in order to interact with Ollama in order to build larger platforms or systems that you want to. I think this is incredibly valuable. One of the interesting things that I found with LLMs is we keep hearing about like the next ChatGPT version, ChatGPT 3 and then 4 and then 5 and then 28. And I actually have a question as a professional as to how sophisticated an LLM really needs to be for the functionality that most users need when they're interacting with a system, right? Not that they shouldn't make better LLMs. Again, by all means, it's kind of like with 5G. Like 5G is fine. I just don't really care that much. They're already talking about 6G, which again, I will take 6G. I also don't really care that much. Again, with the LLMs, as they get more and more sophisticated, as they start having trillions and trillions of parameters within the LLMs, one of the interesting questions is do you actually need an LLM that's that sophisticated, or would a much smaller, much faster LLM actually do whatever it is that you need done? So one of my projects that we've worked on in the past, and I will be working on more in the future, is I have my little robot, right? So I have a little computer vision robot. I think it uses what's called an AS6 from Geekom as the main CPU. I have it using OpenCV. I'm able to talk to it. It's able to talk to me. The whole 9 yards. Well, one of the interesting things is interacting with that robot is I need a way for it to understand what I'm asking for, right? So I have a file with all the different functions. So a time function, a hello function, a goodbye function, a what's the weather function, a tell a joke function, right? There's all these functions. And so what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to talk, so speak to my robot, and then have that robot determine what function I'm asking for without me having to hard code in trigger words, right? If I have to hard code in trigger words, that's just going to be a misery. I just want to be able to talk to the computer and have it figure out what it is that I'm looking for. If I say bonjour, I want it to simply say hello back to me. If I say, do I need an umbrella? I want it to simply tell me whatever the hell the weather is, right? And that's one of the cool things you can do with LLM. So like with that robot, what can happen is I can use speech recognition. So there's a Google speech recognition service. I can talk to my robot. It turns my speech literally into text, into ASCII text. Basically, that ASCII text could then be sent to the LLM with my function file, and basically all the query is what function is this person asking for? All it does is return the function, and then once that function is returned, whatever function it corresponds to is fired off, right? And that is something, again, that is incredibly powerful. Again, imagine using natural language processing in pretty normal systems that your users or you would be interacting with. But at the same time, it's also not the most sophisticated thing in the world, right? I don't need my LLM to create new Shakespeare plays, right? I don't need it to explain quantum physics to me. I need it to say, if somebody says bonjour, Oh, they're asking for the hello function. And so I think that's one of the things to be thinking about with these LLMs is again, there's so much focus on bigger, better, faster, because obviously there's a lot of money in that. But I think for a lot of real professionals, if you actually start looking at the smaller models, those might give you more resources and more value than you're expecting. And what's great with Ollama is again, you just install Ollama and you do it. Oh, Llama was great, right? Because again, like I said, I used Meta's instructions. I used the instructions from Meta. I didn't use some like back alley instructions for how to install Llama 2. I used Meta's Llama 2 instructions, and again, it worked. I can't tell you because it did in fact work. It just took anywhere between 4 to 10 minutes to respond to a request, right? Obviously, not very useful. I have to say, I installed Ollama, and yeah, within 10 minutes, I was writing Python code and getting responses back, and you can see the performance here. So again, whatever product you end up using at the end of the day, I really think Ollama is just an amazing tool for starting with all of this kind of stuff. So as always, I enjoyed teaching this particular class, and I look forward to seeing the next one.